Before he was Abraham, he was just a man named Abram. He lived in a city called Ur of the Chaldees. This was a bustling place, a city of great temples, busy markets, and many, many gods. People there worshipped the moon, the sun, and statues made of stone and wood. It was a world where your identity was tied to your city, your people, and most importantly, your family. Abram was part of a large family. He had his father Terah, his brothers, and their wives and children. This was his entire world, his support system, his past and his future all rolled into one. In those days, family was everything. It was your protection, your livelihood, and your legacy. Imagine a life where every major decision was a family matter. Who you married, where you lived, what work you did. This was Abram's reality. Leaving your family was not like moving to a new city for a job today. It was like severing a part of yourself. It meant leaving behind everyone you knew and everything that made you who you were. It was a social death sentence. You would become a wanderer, a stranger in every land you entered. Without your family, you had no one to stand up for you, no one to help you in times of trouble, and no one to bury you when you died. It was a terrifying thought, one that most people would never even consider. Abram grew up in this world, surrounded by the customs of his people. His father, Terah, was a man of his time, likely involved in the worship of the local deities. The Bible tells us that Terah even took his family and started a journey toward Canaan, but stopped in a place called Haran. It seems the idea of moving was there, but something held them back. Perhaps it was the comfort of the familiar, the fear of the unknown. Life in Haran was still life with family, with the same traditions and the same gods. It was a pause, a moment of stillness before a great change would sweep through Abram's life, a change that would not just ask him to move cities, but to move worlds. In this context, Abram was an ordinary man living an ordinary life. He was approaching old age and his wife Sarai could not have children. In a culture that valued descendants above all else, this was a great sadness and a mark of failure. He had no heir to carry on his name or inherit his property. His future seemed bleak, and his story appeared to be nearing its end. But it was in this place of emptiness and waiting, in the land of Haran, that Abram heard a voice. It was a voice that was different from all the other gods of Ur and Haran. It was a voice that would ask him to do the unthinkable. Then the command came. It came without thunder or lightning, but it shook Abram's world to its core. The book of Genesis describes it simply. God said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." Think about those words, leave your country. That meant leaving his culture, his language, his home. Leave your people. That meant his extended relatives, his tribe, the community that gave him his identity. And finally, leave your father's household. This was the most personal and painful cut of all. It meant leaving the immediate family that formed the very center of his existence. This was not a suggestion, it was a divine instruction. Why was this such a monumental request? Because God was asking Abram to abandon his entire past. His history, his heritage, his safety net, all of it had to be left behind. In return, God offered a promise. "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." For a childless old man, the promise of a great nation must have sounded impossible. It was a trade. Give up everything you can see and touch for a future you cannot imagine. It was a test of trust on a scale that is hard for us to grasp today. The conflict this created within Abram must have been immense. On one side was loyalty to his father, Terah, and his family. This was the highest virtue in his culture. To abandon them was to dishonor them. It was a direct violation of the social and moral code he had lived by his entire life. On the other side was the voice of this one God, a God he was just getting to know. This God was promising a future, a legacy, a purpose that his current life lacked. It was a choice between the tangible love of his family and the intangible promise of the divine. He was caught between his past and a future he could not yet see. This moment defines the very nature of faith. Faith is not about having all the answers. It is about moving forward even when you are full of questions. Abram did not receive a detailed map or a 5-year plan. He was simply told to go. The destination was a mystery, the land I will show you. He had to take the first step without knowing where the path would lead. This is the heart of the story. It is the moment a man is asked to choose between the world he knows and the God who knows him. His decision would not just change his life, it would change the course of human history. So what did Abram do? The scriptures tell us, so Abram went as the Lord had told him. There was no recorded argument, no negotiation, no lengthy period of doubt. He simply obeyed. This act of obedience is one of the most powerful moments in religious history. It shows a profound level of trust. Abram chose to believe that the God who called him was worthy of his complete allegiance, even if it meant turning his back on everything he had ever held dear. He packed his belongings, gathered his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot, and set out from Haran. He left his father's house behind and stepped into the unknown. This journey was not just a physical one, it was a spiritual transformation. With every step away from Haran, Abram was also stepping away from the polytheism of his ancestors. He was leaving the world of many gods for a world with just one. This was a radical idea. It required a complete rewiring of his understanding of the universe. His faith was not a passive belief. It was an active, walking, breathing commitment. He built altars to this one God in the new lands he passed through, marking the landscape with his devotion. He was learning to have a personal relationship with the divine, something very different from the temple rituals of Ur. His obedience reshaped his entire story. The childless man was promised descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. The man from a forgotten city was promised that his name would become great. By leaving his small family circle, he became the patriarch of a much larger spiritual family. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all trace their spiritual lineage back to this one man and this one decision. His choice to follow God's call, even when it conflicted with his duty to family, set in motion a new chapter for humanity. He became known as a friend of God, a title earned through his unwavering trust. Of course, the path was not easy. Abram, later renamed Abraham, faced famine, fear, and family conflict. He made mistakes. He was human. Yet through it all, he kept returning to his faith in the God who had called him. His story is not one of perfect obedience, but of persistent faith. He learned that his ultimate security did not come from his family or his possessions, but from the God who had made him a promise. His life became a testament to the idea that true security is found not in what we hold on to, but in who we trust. So what does this ancient story of a man leaving his home have to say to us today, in 2025? We live in a very different world, yet the fundamental tension between our personal faith and our family obligations is something many of us still feel. Family is still a powerful force in our lives. We are shaped by our parents, our siblings, and our shared history. Their expectations can weigh heavily on us, and sometimes our own spiritual journey, our own calling, can pull us in a direction that our family doesn't understand or approve of. It can be a lonely and difficult path to walk. Abraham's story gives us a powerful model for navigating these challenges. It tells us that sometimes following a higher calling requires making difficult choices. It might not be a literal command to leave our home, but it could be a call to change our career, to forgive someone who seems unforgivable, or to stand up for a belief that makes us unpopular with our loved ones. It's about identifying what our ultimate loyalty is. Is it to tradition, to family expectations, or to a deeper truth that we feel in our hearts? Abraham's story suggests that true fulfillment comes from aligning our lives with that deeper purpose. This doesn't mean that faith and family must always be in conflict. In fact, Abraham's ultimate reward was a family, a great nation that would be a blessing to the world. His journey began by leaving family, but it ended with the creation of a new and larger one. This suggests that when we are true to our deepest convictions, we can create healthier, more authentic relationships. Sometimes we must step away from the familiar patterns of our family in order to become the person we are meant to be, which in turn can allow us to love them in a new and more profound way. Ultimately, Abraham's story is an invitation. It invites us to look at our own lives and ask ourselves, what is our Ur? What is our Haran? What are the comfortable places, relationships, or ideas that we are afraid to leave behind? And what is the promised land that our own inner voice, our own sense of God, might be calling us toward? The story of Abraham is not just about a man who lived thousands of years ago. It is a story about the human heart, torn between the safety of the known and the promise of the unknown. It asks each of us, what journey are we willing to begin?